The Zephyrian Academy's containment protocols had never failed before. For 300 cycles, the galaxy's most dangerous predators had been studied within its walls, held in reinforced chambers of energy and alloy. Every species trusted the Academy's seal, the way others might trust gravity itself. Failures were myths. Safety was law. Until today. Gamma Lecture Hall 7 hummed with the usual low static of the containment field, a faint blue shimmer around the beast at its center. The Cathara lay stretched on the polished alloy floor, chained but restless. Its form was massive, like a saber-toothed tiger merged with a rhinoceros and cloaked in dark, metallic scales that caught the light like fractured obsidian. Two fangs curved from its upper jaw, gleaming white, capable of tearing through armor plating. The alien students gave the creature a wide berth. Crystalline quartzians clustered together, their translucent bodies glittering nervously. The insectoid kitten clicked their mandibles in unease, wings twitching. Nebuloids, gaseous beings drifting inside containment suits, hovered closer to the ceiling, keeping distance. Only one figure sat casually in the front row, elbows on his knees, dark eyes studying the beast with something between curiosity and recognition. The human exchange student, Adnan. Professor Velter, a four-armed Zephyrian with violet skin and high, ridged cheekbones, adjusted the glowing holograms above the hall. "Today we observe the metabolic processes of a Class 9 apex predator," she said, her voice echoing off reinforced walls. "Note the neural pathways. See how energy distribution intensifies when the field simulates a hunting cycle." She gestured and the field pulsed brighter. The Cathara stirred, amber eyes glowing faintly. Its head lifted, jaws parting in a low growl that rumbled through the floor. The students leaned back instinctively. Adnan leaned forward. He saw something others didn't. The twitch of its ears, the flicker in its nostrils. It wasn't rage, not yet, something closer to unease. The hum of the containment system sputtered, flickered. Every alien in the hall froze. The blue shimmer faltered, broke, and vanished in a hiss of silence. Chains rattled as the Cathara surged upright. The beast stretched to its full 3-meter height, muscles rolling under scaled hide. One lunge and it snapped the first chain like twine. Another thrash and the others tore loose, links clattering across the alloy floor. The roar that followed shook the hall. It was no ordinary roar. It was a vibration in bone and glass and crystal, deep enough that several Quartzian students cracked under the force. Panic erupted. Insectoids scrambled for exits, wings buzzing frantically. Nebuloids vented bursts of vapor as they fled. Sirens blared. The floor lights shifted from calm blue to urgent red. Adnan did not move. He watched. The Cathara's claws dug into the alloy, carving trenches. Its tail lashed. Its amber eyes darted from corner to corner. Every sound, every smell in the hall collided inside its skull until the beast trembled like a trapped thunderstorm. It wasn't charging, it wasn't attacking. It was afraid. "Evacuate immediately," Professor Velter's voice snapped with command, though two of her 4 hands clutched the overturned lectern for cover. "That creature will slaughter everything that moves." Nihil, a young insectoid with pale blue chitin who had grown close to Adnan in recent months, grabbed his arm. Her compound eyes glittered in panic. "We must go. Humans are quick, but not that quick. It will tear you apart." Adnan's body screamed to obey. But something deeper, older, rooted in childhood memories of a trembling stray dog cornered in an alley back on Earth, held him still. He whispered almost to himself, "No, it's scared." He stepped forward. The hall gasped as one. Professor Velter's mandibles clacked in disbelief. "Oxygen deprivation has clouded your judgment, human. That thing has killed 17 sentients in the wild." But Adnan shook his head. "Look at its posture, the tail down, ears back. That's not aggression, it's confusion." The Cathara's head swung toward him. Amber eyes met brown. Time froze. The silence pressed heavier than the alarms. Each breath was thunder. Adnan lowered himself slowly to the floor, cross-legged, palms open on his knees like during meditation drills back home. Every move deliberate, unthreatening. "Adnan," Nihil's whisper trembled like breaking glass. "It will end you." The Cathara padded closer. Each footfall thudded like a drumbeat. The floor trembled. Students who had lingered screamed and bolted. Security barriers began to lower at the exits, locking the hall. The beast stopped a meter from him. Its head lowered, nostrils flaring, hot breath rolling over his face. "Hey there," Adnan murmured softly, voice steady though his pulse hammered. "Big guy, I know this place is scary. Strange smells, strange voices, strange walls. You just want to go home, don't you?" The growl faded into a rumble, not a warning, something else. A vibration of chest and throat. A purr. Professor Velter's eyes widened, 4 pupils dilating at once. Impossible. The Cathara leaned closer, its enormous head settling against Adnan's shoulder. The weight nearly toppled him, but he steadied himself, one hand rising slowly to stroke the scaled hide behind its ear. The beast's breathing slowed, its trembling stilled. In 3 centuries of xenobiology, no predator had ever done this. The doors slammed open as security forces stormed in, plasma rifles raised. The leader, Chief Krexnal, barked an order in a voice like grinding stone. "Fire on my mark." "No," Adnan shouted, shielding the beast instinctively. "Don't, it's calm." The rifles hummed with charging plasma. One wrong twitch and the air would fill with lethal fire. The Cathara's amber eyes flicked between weapons, then back to the human's calm gaze. Its massive paw shifted, claws like blades resting lightly against Adnan's leg with unexpected delicacy. Nihil, trembling by the door, whispered, How did you know?" Adnan didn't look away from the beast. His hand kept stroking, steady, careful. "Because back on Earth," he said, voice low, "we learned something. The most dangerous animals are usually just scared." The Cathara purred louder, pressing against him. Professor Velter's voice quavered. "This defies every record, their neural structures." "Maybe you've been studying the wrong structures," Adnan said. His eyes softened. "Maybe you've been studying specimens instead of lives." Krexnal's finger tightened on the trigger. The squad's rifles hummed, seconds from unleashing fire. The Cathara's ears flicked back. A low growl rippled in its chest, fear again. Adnan's voice sharpened, loud enough to cut the alarm. "Hold fire." For a heartbeat, the entire hall balanced on a knife's edge. Would the alien soldiers shoot? Would the beast panic and lash out? Would the fragile thread between human and predator snap? The Cathara shifted, body coiled, eyes darting toward the squad. Its tail lashed once. Then, the beast lunged. The Cathara lunged straight over Adnan. 3 tons of scaled muscle soared past him like a living avalanche, not at the security team, not at the fleeing students, but at the luminous projector dais suspended above the hall. Claws slashed, alloy screamed. A shower of blue-white sparks rained down as the beast tore through the field emitters embedded in the ceiling. The dais buckled, cables spitting light, the hum of the hall's systems dropping in pitch as if the building itself held its breath. Hold fire," Chief Krexnal bellowed, but his squad's discipline cracked under reflex and fear. One rifle spat a bolt of plasma, a white lance that sizzled past the Cathara's flank and carved a molten scar across the far wall. The Cathara twisted midair, a liquid corkscrew of power, and crashed down behind Adnan, interposing its body between him and the rifles. It wasn't a roar this time. It was a deep, rolling growl aimed at the weapons, an animal's language for back away. Adnan rose, breath burning in his chest. "Stand down," he shouted, voice scraping raw. He placed both palms on the Cathara's shoulder and pressed. The beast gave him a fraction of attention, enough to ease the growl. "Cease fire," Professor Velter commanded now, voice steadying into authority. Her 4 hands moved in crisp signs that meant more here than words. The rifles powered down in halting sequence, the hall's echoes thinning into a crackling hush. Acrid smoke from the slagged wall bit at Adnan's throat. Nihil pushed through the door barrier, chitin scuffed, antennae trembling. "Adnan, you're alive," she whispered, astonished and angry at once. "What did you how?" "Later," he murmured, still petting the Cathara's neck in slow, even strokes. The scales felt like warm basalt under his fingers. The beast's flank rose and fell, each breath a tidal swell. It wasn't attacking us. It went for the emitters. The hum was hurting it. Velter angled her head, pupils narrowing. "The hunting cycle resonance," she said, almost to herself. "A sideband frequency. The neural map showed pain spikes, but we assumed it was normal arousal for predation by the spiral." Her voice faltered. "We induced pain." From the rafters, another shiver of light stuttered and died. Emergency shutters slid into place over shattered ducting with pneumatic thumps. The hall's sirens shortened to soft chimes. Somewhere above, maintenance drones clattered to life. Krexnal lowered his rifle, fully carved granite features thawing by degrees. "This is not a sanctuary," he growled. "It is a lecture hall turned hazard site." He stabbed a clawed finger at Adnan. "Human, keep your hands where we can see them, back away from the specimen." The Cathara rumbled. Adnan felt the vibration in his forearms before the sound reached his ears. "Specimen," he repeated, eyes on the security chief. "That's the problem." Krexnal's mandibled mouth twitched. "My problem is that it broke chains rated to restrain cargo haulers and can detonate a soldier with a swipe. Protocol dictates sedation, confinement, and review by the board." Nihil glanced between them. "The board," she said softly, "means Dean Sorexis." Even the nebuloids filtered back from the ceiling at that name, their suits exhaling slow, cautious steam. Sorexis, Zephyrian by biology, legend by practice, ruled the Academy's top council with the kind of calm that made lesser beings forget to breathe. Tradition was gravity in his chambers, gravity crushed. The Cathara's attention drifted back to the mangled dais. It sniffed a hanging cable, snorted at the electric scent, and swiped it into silence. Then it turned its amber gaze to Adnan and pressed its forehead against his chest with unexpected gentleness. The weight staggered him. He braced, chuckling once, a half-choked sound of relief. Nihil blinked all 6 eyelids in sequence. "It accepts you," she said in a tone halfway between wonder and worry. "This is unprecedented," Velter finished, "and inconvenient to many careers." Her eyes sharpened. "Chief Krexnal, protocol also allows for departmental custody if a research outcome of extreme significance requires immediate preservation from harm." Krexnal rumbled. "So noted, but the board will not let an apex predator roam the halls on a leash woven from human hands." "It doesn't need a leash," Adnan said before he could censor himself. "It needs a door to someplace that doesn't sound like knives in its skull." The professor's mandibles clicked. "You propose release." Nihil's antennae flattened. "Release to where? The Academy is in the heart of Zephyrian City, the Gravity Gardens, the Crystal Markets." "Not the city," Adnan said. He looked up at the vaulted ceiling, past the lattice of alloy and light to the idea of open sky. "The verdant belt, the old crater forest east of the canal, it's protected. Quiet." Krexnal barked a laugh, a sound like a landslide. "You are not walking a Class 9 predator through the canals for a midday stroll." "Then we don't walk it," Adnan said, pulse quickening because the shape of a plan had appeared, fragile as breath, bright as trespass. "We transport. The subarteries under the Academy run to the service docks at Belt Gate 7. You know they do, Chief." Krexnal's pupils thinned, a tell of annoyance that he hadn't masked in time. "Those schematics are restricted." "I don't need schematics. I smell the coolant every morning on my way to Xenomechanics Lab." Adnan shrugged. "Humans notice leaks." Velter studied him. "Even if this were possible, the board would never approve." "Then we do it," Nihil said in a small voice, and then surprised herself by continuing stronger. "Without the board." Silence fell like a dropped curtain. The Cathara lifted its head as if the absence of noise had mass. Velter's crest flattened tight to her skull. "Careful, Nihil." "I am," Nihil replied, trembling but stubborn. "The board will do what it always does. Classify, sedate, slice, publish. Our learning becomes their ladder. This is different. It has to be." Krexnal paced, claws sparking faintly on the alloy. "You ask me to defy the board, break station law, and smuggle a predator through maintenance arteries because a human petted it like a house beast." Adnan met his gaze. "I'm asking you to trust what you saw with your own eyes." He gestured to the cracked Quartzians huddled near the far doors, to the nebuloids exhaling slow rings of fog, to the kitten who peeked from behind seats. "It chose not to hurt us. We owe it a choice back." Velter drew a long breath through 4 fluted nostrils. "It is not just the creature," she said quietly. "It is what it means. If an apex predator can bond across species, then entire models of cognition must be rewritten. Our hierarchy of sentience, our methods of contact, the ethics of containment." Krexnal grunted. "The board will not burn its libraries for an animal's purr." Adnan's hand had never stopped moving. Stroke, pause, stroke. He felt the beast's heartbeat under his palm, heavy, steadying. In that quiet between heartbeats, he heard his father's voice, the one that taught him the basics of engines and mercy. If it's loud, something's wrong. If it's quiet, you can listen. "Listen," Adnan said to the room. "Please." They did. He hadn't expected that. The sirens were gone. The hall's screens were dead. There was only the rasp of breath and the soft crackle of cooling metal. "We transport it," he said, keeping his tone practical, a mechanic discussing a jammed actuator. "We get it to the verdant belt, we monitor, we observe, we learn without torture." He glanced at Velter. "You document properly." Krexnal folded his arms. "And when Sirexis discovers we've rerouted an apex predator through Academy arteries, he will staple us to a tribunal wall." "Then we move before he forms a committee," Velter said, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. "Chief, I will file the necessary requisitions for a sedation cradle and a heavy transport, a legitimate pretext. You will delay fulfillment by citing line interference from the dais collapse. Meanwhile," she nodded toward Adnan and Nihil, "we will use the subarteries." Nihil's mandibles parted, a kitten smile. "Professor." Krexnal rubbed a ridge over one eye, a soldier's tell of headache or prophecy. "By the Cascades," he muttered, then flashed a humorless grin. "If we are to throw our careers into a furnace, we may as well do it with ceremony." He flicked his comm bead. "Squad Delta, stand down perimeter to outer ring. No discharges. If the board sends auditors, they will find a quiet hall and a calm beast." He cut the channel. "You have until my patience ends." Velter's hands blurred. Drones buzzed from wall niches, hauling tarps, gurneys, and tool crates, building a scene of measured, bureaucratic delay. Adnan released a breath he hadn't known he held. The Cathara leaned into him again. "You're going to be okay," he whispered, and felt ridiculous and right at once. "We're getting you out." Nihil scurried to the side door, peered into the maintenance corridor beyond. Dim light, that cold metallic tang of coolant and damp stone. She flashed a hand sign to Adnan, clear for now. "Professor," Adnan said softly, "if this goes wrong." "It will," Velter said, startling him with a flicker of humor. "Science is the art of finding new ways to be wrong, but this—" her eyes warmed, old scholar's fire rekindled. "This may be one of the good wrongs." They moved. Nihil led light and quick, antennae tasting air currents, reading the corridor's faint vibrations like a poem. Adnan walked beside the Cathara, one hand on its shoulder, the other guiding its head when a low beam threatened to clip a horn. The beast followed with surprising grace, paws thudding softly, tail coiled to avoid pipes. Velter, burdened with a crate of sensor calibration tools for any curious passerby, trailed them with the confident stride of someone who belonged anywhere she chose to stand. Behind them, Krexnal's squad rearranged debris to look official and slow. The subarteries were older than the Academy's glittering halls, carved when the city was still a series of domes over raw rock. The walls sweated cold. The lights were spaced far apart, leaving pockets of shadow. Low conduits pulsed with the dull heartbeat of the Academy's infrastructure. The Cathara sniffed at the damp stone, relaxing by degrees, the absence of that predator cycle hum washing tension from its muscles. They reached a junction that smelled sharply of ozone. A panel overhead displayed a schematic, a branching map of arteries, some marked with caution triangles, others labeled with cold, precise names. Nihil tapped the route with a claw. "Left down the old coolant spine, then right at the Scraper's Junction. Belt Gate 7 is 2 levels below." "Scraper's Junction?" Adnan asked. "Where the pipe-cleaning drones meet. Noisy, busy, good cover." Her antennae twitched. "And one more thing, the board's auditor lines have taps there." Velter frowned. "You mean surveillance?" "I mean ears," Nihil said and shivered. "We move quick." They did. Twice they ducked into alcoves as maintenance crews rumbled past. Once a trio of thick-shelled Boraxians hauling a generator core. Once a skeletal hover rig carrying spools of mag cable that hummed like bees. In both cases, the Cathara pressed close to Adnan, chest rumbling soft caution but not fear. He kept his voice low and warm, a steady thread through a maze of stone and metal. At Scraper's Junction, the ceiling opened into a webwork of ducts like the inside of a machine's lungs. Drone arms dangled like steel vines, scraping calcite film from old pipes into clattering bins. The sound was a dull, endless rasp, the opposite of the painful, cutting hum in the hall. The Cathara seemed to like it. It exhaled a long, relieved gust that smelled of warm stone and rain. Nihil dropped to one knee by a wall panel and popped the faceplate with a tool from her bandolier. A thicket of fiber-optic threads spilled out, poolsing with soft colors. "Auditor lines," she said. "Give me 8 breaths." 7, Velter said. 6, Krexnal's voice crackled in Adnan's ear, surprising him. The chief had ghosted a channel onto his bead. Auditors just pinged the hall. They know the field failed. They will know it failed without incident in 30 seconds. They will suspect incident anyway. Copy, Adnan whispered. The Cathara's ears flicked at the word. Good boy, Adnan murmured and then caught himself. Good friend. The beast's tail thumped once, careful not to crush Nihil. Nihil's claws danced. Done, she said, and reseated the plate. Anyone listening will hear a soothing loop of pump diagnostics. Remind me to hire you for espionage, Velter murmured. They cut right into a narrow artery that stank of old coolant and rust. Far ahead, blue daylight ghosted through a grate, the promise of Belt Gate 7 and the verdant beyond. They turned a final corner and stopped. Two figures waited by the grate, silhouettes backlit by that blue glow. One tall and spare, robes falling in geometric planes. The other broad and quiet, the particular stillness of a professional who didn't need to move to control a room. Dean Sorexis, Velter breathed. Sorexis stepped forward into the artery's pallid light. His skin was the pale storm gray of a Zephyrian who had spent many cycles under the cold suns of debate chambers. His eyes were almost colorless, their pupils needles. He did not look at the Cathara first. He looked at Adnan. Human, he said, voice like glass smoothed by 1,000 tides. You have interrupted an experiment of record. Adnan set his feet. I interrupted a torture. A twitch at the corner of Sorexis's mouth might have been amusement, or not. Language, he murmured, as if to a clever child. We test the universe, it tests back. This is our covenant with knowledge. Velter stepped between them, 4 hands lifted in formal angles. Dean, with respect, the field resonance inflicted non-trivial pain, neural telemetry. Telemetry, Sorexis said softly, is context. Context is interpretation. Interpretation is career. Nihil bristled, and life. Life, Sorexis said, and finally turned his gaze to the Cathara. For a long moment he simply stood, absorbing the sight of the beast leaning against a primate that shouldn't have lived 5 minutes in a breach. Life is data, and data is leverage. Krexnal's voice buzzed in Adnan's ear again. 3 auditors en route to your location. I can stall 1 with a paperwork murder. 2 will smell blood. Adnan swallowed, kept his voice steady. We're taking it to the verdant belt. You are not, Sorexis said. No heat, sheer fact. He raised 1 hand, 2 fingers extended, a gesture as old as Zephyrian law. The broad figure beside him, an enforcer armored in black, shifted his stance by a hair. The Cathara sensed it. It went from calm to coiled in a single heartbeat, eyes flaring, tail shaping for leverage. Adnan felt the change under his palm and spoke quickly, soothing. Hey, easy, stay with me. Sorexis's pale eyes touched that human hand on scaled muscle. Fascinating, he said almost gently. Cross-species modulation, a singular anomaly, we will study it. You'll cut it apart to prove a point, Adnan said. To prove 100, Sorexis corrected, and prevent 1,000 unwarranted extrapolations by lesser minds. Tradition exists to protect truth from enthusiasm. Velter's crest lifted, outrage melting caution. Tradition should not be a muzzle on ethics. Ethics, Sorexis said with the serene certainty of a man who had swallowed philosophy whole, is a technology. We iterate it as necessary. Today, necessity says, secure the specimen. He gestured. The enforcer unshouldered a device that hummed in a pitch that made Adnan's molars ache. A focus stunner designed to drop large animals without leaving scorch marks for committees to question. The Cathara flinched, claws gouging rock. Adnan stepped with it, moving his body between the emitter and the beast. The hum scraped across his bones like a file. Don't, he said. He didn't know if he meant the enforcer or the universe. Sorexis's gaze did not harden, it didn't need to. Do not be obtuse, human, step aside. And if I can't, Adnan asked quietly. Sorexis inclined his head, a man offering a gracious exit from a poor hill to die on. Then you will learn the shape of consequence. The artery narrowed around the moment. Dripping pipes, remote drone rasp, the ghost blue light of the grate, the beast's breath warm on Adnan's neck, Nihil's pulse flickering at her throat. Velter poised, 4 hands open around a question with teeth. Adnan found the quiet between heartbeats again. Dean, he said, and surprised himself with the calm in his voice. Let me show you something nobody has seen. He lifted his hand from the Cathara's neck and stepped away 1 measured pace. Every muscle in the beast tightened, then held. Its eyes stayed on Adnan. It rumbled once a question. He nodded, a tiny tilt. The Cathara lowered itself to the floor. Sorexus did not blink. Trained behavior. Adnan shook his head. Trust. He crouched in front of the beast, palm out, fingers relaxed. The Cathara leaned forward until its massive head rested against his open hand, and then, with fragile absurdity, it exhaled and purred. The artery trembled with that sound. The enforcer's stance wavered. Even Velter's breath caught. Nihil made a sound like a prayer she hadn't learned. Sorexus watched, expression unreadable. For a long, long moment, no one moved. Then the grate behind Sorexus exploded inward in a spray of crystal and daylight. Figures in matte green hazard cloaks poured through the breach like a falling wall. 6, 8, a dozen, masks mirrored, sigils stitched in forbidden black thread. A spiral hooked around an eye. Nihil gasped the name that haunted academy rumor and bored nightmares alike. The Untethered. The lead raider's voice came through a mask filter, cold and bright. "Stand away from the human and the predator," they ordered, leveling a weapon that was very much not academy issue. "By edict of the Verdant Accord, both are now under our protection." Sorexus turned his head, slow as a clock. "You have chosen the wrong artery to vandalize." The Untethered's weapon thrummed to readiness. The Cathara rose like a thunderhead. And in the blue-lit, dripping narrow of the subartery, caught between tradition, rebellion, and something older than both, Adnan understood that the Academy's first breach of containment had just become a war for what counted as life. The artery erupted in chaos. Dust and shards of crystal rained from the shattered grate as the intruders fanned out, weapons bristling. Their matte green cloaks swallowed light, marked only by the stitched spiral sigil curling into a watchful eye. The Untethered, whispered about in lecture halls, denounced in board declarations, blamed for vanishing specimens and sabotaged experiments. To the Academy, they were radicals. To those who whispered in safer company, they were liberators. Their leader, tall and lean, voice amplified through a mask filter, repeated the command. "Step away from the human and the predator. By edict of the Verdant Accord, both are under our protection." Dean Sorexus stood as still as sculpture, his pale eyes glacial. The enforcer beside him shifted, weapon emitter still humming, but no order was given. The Cathara's growl filled the artery like thunder rolling through a canyon. Adnan felt the sound vibrating in his ribs. His hand pressed against the beast's flank, grounding it, grounding himself. "Protection," Sorexus said at last, his voice smooth as polished glass. "From knowledge." "From vivisection," the Untethered leader snapped back. "From tradition dressed as cruelty, from men like you." Professor Velter moved a cautious step forward, 4 hands raised in a scholar's sign of parley. "Wait, listen. There is more here than any of us understand. This creature, this bond, it changes the equations, if we—" "Silence, traitor," Sorexus cut in, eyes never leaving the masked figures. "You will not justify terrorism with sentiment." Nihil's mandibles clicked, the kitten equivalent of a curse. "Better sentiment than your scalpel," she muttered, but too low for the dean to hear. She edged closer to Adnan, antennae twitching with sharp anxiety. The Untethered leveled their weapons. Not plasma rifles, the Academy knew those too well. These spat pulses of concussive force, designed to knock armored targets sprawling without piercing walls. They had planned for a fight underground. Adnan's throat tightened. They were outnumbered, caught between the Academy's enforcers and these insurgents. The Cathara pressed against him, restless, trembling with fear and fury both. If one shot fired, if one mistake was made, blood would paint the artery walls. "Wait," Adnan shouted, surprising himself. His voice cracked off the stone, silencing the standoff for one breath. He lifted his hands slowly from the Cathara's hide. "If this is about the beast, it trusts me, it follows me, so take me too." Every head turned. Nihil hissed Adnan. "It's the only way," he whispered back. He looked at the Untethered leader, at the mirrored mask hiding whatever alien eyes glared behind it. "You said both are under your protection. Then I'm part of this. If you fight here, you'll kill it, or it'll kill you. Let me walk it out." The Cathara rumbled deep in its chest, and Adnan swore it understood. Sorexus tilted his head. The human volunteers himself as leash and shield. Fascinating. His mouth twitched into something that almost resembled approval, though sharp and cold. "Do you see, radicals? He binds his own kind to the unknown. That is the essence of study. That is why the board exists, to harness chaos, not kneel to it." You harness nothing but power, the untethered leader shot back. They gestured sharply. Fall in, human, bring the creature, now. Velter's crest rose. Adnan, no. If they take you, we lose the one proof we have that this connection is real. The board will bury what remains. Adnan turned to her, the professor who had first seen past his awkwardness into his potential. Then remember it, he said quietly. Remember what you saw. If I don't come back, make them remember too. The Cathara nudged him, impatient. Its amber eyes glowed in the dim light fixed on the intruders, waiting for his lead. Adnan, Nihil whispered, her claws clutching his sleeve. You'll vanish, that's what they say. The untethered don't leave trails. He swallowed, then maybe I'll become one. Krexnal's voice hissed in his earpiece. If you walk with them, human, I cannot shield you from the board, or from worse. Adnan gave the faintest smile. You already did more than protocol allowed, thanks, Chief. The untethered parted, leaving a clear line to the shattered grate. Blue daylight streamed through, brighter now, carrying the scent of open air and rain-soaked stone. The Cathara rumbled again, muscles coiling to move. Adnan, Velter said one last time, desperate. This is not bravery, this is. Human, Cyrexus interrupted, his glass-smooth voice carrying a weight that made the air cold. When you leave this artery, you step outside the circle of order. Know this, the galaxy eats anomalies. Sooner or later, they choke on their own myth. Adnan looked back at him, steady. Or they change the rules. He pressed his palm to the Cathara's neck. Come on, big guy. Together, they walked into the breach. The daylight struck like a revelation. They emerged onto a narrow service platform overlooking the verdant belt. Below stretched a vast crater forest, its canopy a living ocean of emerald. Vines as thick as bridges coiled between ancient spires of stone, waterfalls tumbling into mist-filled chasms. Alien birds with crystalline wings flashed in and out of shafts of light. It was a cathedral of life, wild, untouched, alive in a way the academy halls could never be. The Cathara inhaled, and its whole body shuddered with relief. Its purr resonated so deeply that the platform itself seemed to hum. Adnan's chest tightened at the sight. You're home, aren't you? He whispered. The untethered leader raised a hand. Move, we've lingered too long. Behind them the grate clanged shut. Cyrexus remained in the artery, pale eyes like knives. Run, radicals, hide in your forests, the board is patient. Truth will crawl back to us, dripping blood. The enforcer's stunner hummed once, hungry for a target. But no order came. Cyrexus simply watched, and his silence was more terrifying than any shout. The untethered shoved Adnan forward, guiding the Cathara down a spiraling stair into the belt. Each step into the green shadows felt like crossing a border not just of place, but of destiny. Nihil's voice echoed faintly from the artery above, a final cry before the grate sealed her from sight. Don't let them erase you. The forest swallowed him. The Cathara padded at his side. The untethered closed ranks around them. And in the shadows of the verdant belt, where sunlight and silence danced, Adnan realized this was no rescue. It was an abduction. But maybe, just maybe, it was also a chance. The verdant belt was alive in ways Adnan could never have imagined. Every step forward was accompanied by a symphony of motion, the distant drumming of unseen creatures, the whisper of wind through colossal vines, and the subtle crackle of bioluminescent moss underfoot. Sunlight filtered through the emerald canopy like fractured green glass, painting shifting patterns across the forest floor. To a Terran, it was almost too vivid, almost too alive, but to Adnan, it felt like a promise. The untethered led the way along a spiraling root bridge, each step precise and confident. The Cathara followed, immense paws silent on the mossy surface, head low and amber eyes scanning every shadow. It was calm now, but Adnan knew the peace was fragile. Apex predators did not forget fear, and he had no illusions about the weeks of conditioning and abuse the creature had endured in the academy. The leader of the untethered, who had introduced himself as Kale, moved beside him, voice modulated by the mask but carrying an unmistakable resonance of authority. You are far from the corridors of concrete and fear, Kale said. Here the belt remembers. It knows what is safe and what is not. It will teach you both, human. Adnan nodded, adjusting the strap of his bag, which contained little more than the essentials, a medkit, a multi-tool, and a few personal items he refused to abandon. Nihil's words echoed in his mind. Don't let them erase you. He wondered if she would understand this choice someday. They reached a clearing, a natural amphitheater carved by centuries of erosion and growth. Towering trees with bark like smoked glass rose from the perimeter, their roots forming natural barricades. At the center lay a circular pool of crystalline water, reflecting the kaleidoscope of the canopy. This, Kale explained, was their sanctuary. Here the Cathara may rest. Here you will learn the truth about its bond and the truth about humans. Adnan crouched beside the Cathara, letting the giant apex predator nuzzle against him. He studied its amber eyes, intelligent, wary, yet beginning to trust. He whispered softly, recalling his childhood training with Earth's wolves and big cats. It is not malice you fear, but understanding, and we will give it understanding. Kale spoke again. The board believes apex predators are irredeemable, tools for study, nothing more. They see the Cathara as property, as a specimen. But they are wrong. All species carry capacity for trust, for empathy, for connection. You have shown the first spark of recognition. Adnan allowed himself a faint smile, but the calm was deceptive. He knew the Academy would not let him vanish so easily. Cyrexis would send operatives into the belt, tracking, hunting. The untethered could hide him for days, maybe weeks, but the board had resources that dwarfed anything the forest could offer. Suddenly the ground trembled, not from the Cathara's weight, but from something approaching fast. The canopy shivered, and a low growl echoed from the distant treetops. Adnan stiffened, hand on the Cathara's flank. Kale's posture stiffened as well, the masked face tilting toward the sound. "Hunters," Kale said simply. Adnan's stomach sank. The board sent them. Kale inclined his head. Yes, they believe the human and the predator are one asset to reclaim. They will not negotiate, they will not hesitate. From the shadows of the forest, figures emerged. They moved with a precision that suggested training and lethal intent, cloaked in dark green, blending almost seamlessly with the verdant surroundings. Unlike the untethered, these hunters carried plasma rifles, lances designed for piercing and restraint. Adnan's heart pounded, but he forced himself to breathe steadily. The Cathara shifted beside him, ears flicking, tail coiling like a living whip. "Big guy," he murmured, "we're not going to run, we're going to fight smart." Kale's hand rested on his shoulder. "Do not underestimate them, but also do not underestimate yourself. Humans adapt. You will see the belt is more than trees. It is a strategy, a network, a living weapon if you know how to move within it." Adnan felt the weight of responsibility settle on him. Not just for himself, but for the Cathara, for Nihil, and for every student who had ever been taught to fear rather than understand. The first shot rang out, a flash of blue-green energy that scorched the edge of the clearing. The Cathara growled, a rumble that shook the earth. Adnan leapt atop its back instinctively, feeling the raw power beneath him, the muscle and scale coiled like a spring ready to uncoil. Kale raised his hands, signaling retreat and maneuver. "Do not engage directly, lead them toward the rift." Adnan knew the rift, a massive chasm running through the heart of the verdant belt, jagged cliffs and hanging vines creating natural traps and ambush points. If they could survive to reach it, the hunters' technological advantage would be nullified by the terrain. The hunters advanced, plasma bolts sparking against trees, ripping chunks of bark and stone. The Cathara charged, each step sending shockwaves through the forest floor, scattering smaller creatures into the shadows. Adnan leaned low, whispering commands, guiding the beast around obstacles with the precision of a seasoned rider. A hunter fell, caught in a tangled root, while another barely avoided the swing of the Cathara's tail. Adnan's heart raced, not just with fear but with exhilaration. This was humanity in its purest form, improvisation under pressure, courage born of necessity, and a bond with a creature that transcended species. "Almost there," he murmured. The rift's shadow loomed ahead, vines dangling like serpents ready to entangle. Kale followed on foot, moving with the fluid grace of someone intimately familiar with the belt. Then a sharp whistle cut through the chaos. A coordinated attack. Hunters split into flanking units, closing the net. One plasma lance grazed the Cathara's shoulder, eliciting a roar that shook the forest to its roots. Adnan gritted his teeth. "Hold on, big guy, just a little further." The rift opened beneath them, a yawning maw of stone and mist. Adnan's instincts screamed, calculating angles, momentum, and weight distribution. He adjusted his grip, leaning into the Cathara's stride as the predator leapt. Muscles coiled, claws dug, and they cleared the edge in a single, breathtaking bound. For a moment the world hung suspended. Mist and sunlight, shadow and scale, human and beast together in defiance of gravity and expectation. Then they landed with a ground-shaking impact. Hunters skidded back, unable to follow. The Cathara's roar echoed off the chasm walls, a declaration as much as a warning. Adnan slid off its back, crouching low, chest heaving. Kale's hand rested briefly on his shoulder. You have survived the first trial, but this was merely the beginning. The belt has more tests, more secrets, and the board will not relent. Adnan nodded, feeling the weight of every decision pressing down. The forest had given him a glimpse of freedom, but also a warning. The path ahead would demand more than courage. It would demand ingenuity, compassion, and the unbreakable trust between human and beast. From the depths of the rift, a low, resonant rumble echoed, not the Catharas this time, but something far larger, far older. The forest itself seemed to breathe, waiting, observing, and judging. Adnan's amber-eyed companion pressed close. He could feel its pulse, its heartbeat matching his own. For the first time, he understood the truth. Survival alone was not enough. To protect the Cathara, to protect the belt, he would need to understand it, and perhaps, in doing so, understand himself. The mist thickened. Shapes moved within it, indistinct, ancient, and undeniably alive. Kale's voice cut through the tension, low and urgent. They know you are here. The belt remembers all who enter, and it has chosen to test you. Adnan's pulse quickened. He stared into the mist, the Cathara at his side, the hunters regrouping on the opposite edge of the chasm. Somewhere in that haze, danger waited, and not just the board. And in the shadowed depths, something stirred, watching, patient, and immense. Adnan felt the weight of the belt's gaze pressing down on him, subtle but insistent, like the slow tightening of a coil. Mist curled around the chasm's edges, drifting and twisting as if alive, and every sound, every chirp, crack, and rustle was amplified in the still air. The Cathara, normally unflappable, lowered its head slightly, sensing the unseen presence that Adnan could only feel in his gut. Kale gestured toward a narrow path winding along the rift's inner wall, its surface slick with moisture and veins of phosphorescent fungi that glowed faintly like the eyes of hidden creatures. "Follow me," he said, voice calm but urgent. "The belt will test your bond, not with the hunters, but with itself." Adnan glanced at the Cathara, whose massive claws scraped the stone with a faint metallic rasp. He murmured softly, as if the predator were a companion from his childhood. "It's okay, big guy. We've faced hunters before. We'll face whatever this is together." The Cathara's rumble responded in kind, a vibration that resonated through Adnan's bones. The path narrowed, forcing them to move in single file. The mist thickened, carrying with it scents that made Adnan's head swim, earthy decay, the tang of ozone, and something faintly metallic like iron, but alive. Somewhere above, the forest canopy shifted, leaves scraping against one another with deliberate rhythm. Adnan realized that every movement, every footfall was being watched, evaluated. Then came the first strike. A massive branch, impossibly thick and armored with bark like stone, swung down from above, aimed to crush them. Adnan dove instinctively, dragging the Cathara with him, and the branch smashed into the wall behind them, splintering into shards. The predator's roar echoed, fierce but controlled, as if it too recognized the belt's will in this challenge. Kale's voice cut through the tension. "The belt does not fight like hunters. It tests, it measures. It does not seek to kill unless you fail its judgment." Adnan nodded, heart pounding. "Tests, not traps," he reminded himself. "We have passed one trial, we can pass this." They pressed forward, navigating a series of hanging vines, narrow ledges, and pools of luminous water. Every step demanded precision, every breath demanded awareness. The Cathara followed without hesitation, muscles coiled like springs, movements astonishingly agile for its size. Adnan could feel the predator's nervous energy, its trust in him absolute. That trust would be the difference between survival and disaster. Hours seemed to pass, or maybe only minutes. Time was distorted in the belt, stretched by anticipation and fear. Eventually, they reached a cavern, hidden within the rift's jagged cliffs. Its walls shimmered with mineral deposits, casting fractured light across pools of water that reflected the bioluminescent canopy above. At the center of the cavern lay a massive stone slab, etched with markings older than the oldest records of any sentient species Adnan had studied. Kale knelt beside it, tracing the grooves with gloved fingers. "This is the heart of the belt," he said. "It is both a sanctuary and a challenge. Every being who enters must face the truth of their connection with life, with fear, and with trust." Adnan studied the carvings. They depicted creatures of impossible size and form, intertwined with humanoid figures, hands reaching, claws resting, eyes meeting. Some images showed conflict, others harmony, but every depiction shared one theme, the acknowledgement of understanding across species. A sudden tremor shook the cavern. Water rippled and a low rumble vibrated through the stone. The Cathara bristled, muscles tensing. Adnan placed a hand on its scaled flank, whispering soothing words. "It's okay, we're not here to fight, we're here to understand." From the shadows, shapes began to emerge, creatures unlike any Adnan had ever seen. Towering, multi-limbed predators with translucent hides and pulsating cores of energy slithered and padded into the light. They moved silently, observing, circling, evaluating. Kale's tone was solemn. "These are the wardens of the belt. They judge the worthiness of those who enter. Many have tried to pass, few succeed. Fear alone will doom you. Trust alone may save you." Adnan swallowed hard. His heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to remain calm. He looked down at the Cathara, whose amber eyes met his. "If I falter, we both fall," he realized. He crouched low, speaking softly to the beast. "Stay with me, breathe, watch me, and we'll show them what trust looks like." The wardens advanced, forming a semicircle around them. Adnan sensed no malice, only scrutiny. They examined the predator first, noting every twitch of muscle, every flick of ear. Then their gaze fell on him. For a moment, the human felt the full weight of the belt's judgment. He stepped forward, hands raised in a gesture of peace, and spoke, not in any formal language, but in the soft, deliberate tone he had used to calm the Cathara. "We mean no harm. We are allies, not threats. We face fear together, and we choose trust over aggression." The cavern's air seemed to pulse in response. One of the wardens extended a translucent limb toward the Cathara, brushing its flank. The predator tensed but did not strike. Slowly, it lowered its head, eyes never leaving Adnan's face. Another warden approached him directly, its bioluminescent core glowing brighter. Adnan held his ground, unflinching, and extended a hand. The creature paused, then gently touched him, an acknowledgement of recognition. The other wardens followed suit, circling and making contact, and the tension in the cavern dissipated. Kale exhaled slowly. "You have passed the heart's first judgment, but there is more. The board will not give up. The belt's secrets are vast, and its lessons are only beginning." Adnan nodded, feeling the rush of relief mixed with exhaustion. He had faced hunters, he had faced the belt, and he had seen the Cathara's trust rewarded. But he knew the trials ahead would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. Suddenly, the cavern's shadows deepened. A larger, more deliberate movement approached from the far end, slow and purposeful. Adnan's chest tightened. The silhouette was massive, wingspan wider than the tallest trees outside the rift. Its eyes glowed with an intelligence that rivaled any being he had ever encountered. The Cathara growled low in its throat, muscles coiled for defense, yet it did not strike. It sensed, as Adnan did, that this presence was different, not a hunter, not a warden, something ancient, something that had existed long before the academy, long before the belt itself had been charted. Kale's voice trembled slightly beneath his calm exterior. "That is the primordial, the true guardian of the belt. Few have seen it and lived to tell. It will test you, human. It will challenge the Cathara, and it will judge whether your bond is strong enough to endure the trials ahead." Adnan's pulse raced, adrenaline and awe mixing in his veins. He took a deep breath, feeling the Cathara's massive body against his side. The predator's trust anchored him, gave him courage. He squared his shoulders, meeting the primordial's glowing gaze. "Whatever you are," he whispered, voice steady, "we do not come to conquer, we come to understand, and we will prove that trust can overcome fear." The primordial's wings unfurled, filling the cavern with a shadow that swallowed light. Its voice, if it could be called that, resonated directly in Adnan's mind, ancient and measured. "Then show me, human, show me the depth of your bond and the courage of your species. Only then will the belt reveal its final secrets." Adnan's amber eyes met the Cathara's. Both beings, human and predator, knew the next challenge would define everything: survival, trust, and the fragile bridge between species. The air inside the cavern grew thick with tension, each breath tasting of iron and ozone. The primordial's immense wings beat once, twice, sending gusts that rattled the phosphorescent fungi on the walls. Adnan felt the ground vibrate beneath his feet, a reminder that this was not a mere creature. It was a force of nature, a living mountain cloaked in scales and energy. The Cathara shifted, muscles coiling like taut ropes. Its amber eyes scanned the primordial, then flicked to Adnan, reading the human's expression for guidance. Adnan knelt slightly, lowering his head in a gesture that had calmed the predator so many times before. "We're together," he murmured. "No matter what comes, we face it side by side." Kale's voice, tense and quiet, broke the stillness. The primordial does not respond to threats. It responds to truth. Any act of aggression, hesitation, or fear will be magnified and punished. Its trials are as much mental as physical. Adnan nodded, steeling himself. He had survived hunters, rogue predators, and the belt's first tests. But now he faced something older than the galaxy itself. He felt a bead of sweat trail down his temple, but his focus did not waver. The Cathara mirrored his stance, body taut, tail flicking with restrained energy. Without warning, the primordial's eyes flared with a luminous intensity, and the cavern transformed. The walls seemed to dissolve, revealing a sprawling landscape of impossible scale, towering crystalline forests, rivers of liquid light, and mountains that twisted toward the void of an alien sky. This was not the belt. It was a vision, a projection of the primordial's consciousness, a domain where reality bent to its will. Adnan steadied himself. Every instinct screamed that this was dangerous, that one wrong move could trigger catastrophe. Yet he felt the Cathara's presence anchoring him, a reminder that trust could be a shield stronger than any weapon. Suddenly, multiple figures emerged from the shimmering terrain, echoes of past trials, predators the size of buildings, and alien sentients with eyes like molten metal. They advanced silently, and Adnan realized they were not physical threats but tests, manifestations of doubt, fear, and failure. Each represented a challenge the primordial deemed essential for him to confront. The Cathara growled low, stepping protectively in front of him. Adnan reached out, touching the predator's scaled flank. "We do this together," he whispered. The first figure lunged, a colossal feline predator, jaws wide, eyes burning with malice. Adnan felt his pulse spike, but he did not flee. He held the Cathara's gaze, communicating silently. The predator understood. Together they faced the illusion head-on. The Cathara leapt, massive claws digging into the projected ground, muscles rippling with power. It did not strike to kill but to deflect, to disrupt the illusion's energy. Adnan moved with it, coordinating each step, each breath. The figure dissipated with a wail, the vision reacting to their unity, not to violence. Another challenge emerged, an alien sentient with multiple arms and crystalline skin, eyes narrowing in judgment. It advanced with deliberate slowness, testing Adnan's composure. He did not raise a weapon. Instead, he spoke softly, deliberately, explaining his intent. "We do not harm, we do not dominate, we choose understanding." The being froze, then shimmered, its form fracturing and collapsing like a prism in sunlight. Each trial that followed tested a different aspect of human resilience, patience, empathy, courage, ingenuity. And each time Adnan relied not on strength but on connection, with the Cathara, with his surroundings, and with the intent of the beings judging him. Hours, maybe days, passed in the primordial's shifting landscape. Time was fluid, measured only by the intensity of the trials. Adnan's body ached, but his mind remained sharp, fueled by the determination to prove that trust and understanding could transcend instinct and history. Finally, the greatest challenge emerged, a mirror image of the Cathara, larger, more fearsome, with eyes burning red. It lunged with blinding speed, fangs bared. Adnan froze for a heartbeat, recognizing the trial for what it was, a test of fear, a test of whether the Cathara and he could trust each other above all else. "Big guy," Adnan said, voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. "This is the last one. Trust me, trust yourself, trust us." The Cathara roared, a deep, resonant sound, and leapt forward, not to attack, but to mirror Adnan's movements with precision and control. Together they faced the illusionary beast, sidestepping, circling, and finally pinning it with coordinated force that relied not on killing but on restraint and timing. The figure shattered into 1,000 shards of light, and the landscape collapsed around them. The cavern returned, unchanged yet imbued with a new serenity. The primordial hovered above, wings folded, eyes glowing with calm approval. Kale stepped forward, voice reverent. "Few have survived even one trial of the heart. Fewer still have faced the primordial itself and emerged unscathed. You have succeeded. The Cathara has proven itself worthy, and so have you." Adnan exhaled deeply, relief washing through him like a tidal wave. The Cathara nuzzled him, purring, vibrations resonating through the stone floor. For a moment, the weight of the trials lifted, leaving only a profound sense of connection. But even as he savored the victory, a shadow flickered at the cavern's edge. The faint hum of machinery, alien and deliberate, echoed in the distance. A signal, a warning. Adnan's pulse quickened. Somewhere beyond the belt, someone had been watching, someone who would not accept this union of human and predator. Kale's expression darkened. You've passed the belt's trial, yes, but the galaxy does not wait. There are forces that will not tolerate what you have achieved here. Your bond has already drawn attention. Adnan's amber eyes met the Cathara's. Together they had faced fear, survived judgment, and proven the impossible. But he knew that their greatest challenge was yet to come. The true test of their bond and of humanity's place among the stars was waiting beyond the rift. The rift stretched before them like a wound in space, a jagged seam of darkness between star systems. Energy crackled along its edges, lightening like tendrils that threatened to tear any vessel apart. Adnan stood at the edge of the observation platform, the Cathara looming behind him, its massive bulk casting a shadow that merged with the void. Kale joined him, eyes scanning the sensors. Our trackers confirm movement, a fleet unknown origin, no markings, no broadcasts. They are organized, deliberate, and heavily armed. Adnan's hand rested on the Cathara's scaled flank. We've survived impossible odds before. This is just another test, and we're not alone this time. The human's words held a weight the alien could feel. There was truth in them, not bravado. The Cathara's amber eyes locked onto the rift, muscles coiled like springs ready to launch. Its low rumble echoed through the observation deck, a sound both warning and reassurance. In the distance, dark shapes emerged from the rift, ships of unfamiliar design, jagged and angular, bristling with weapons that seemed to hum with an alien energy. They moved with precision, a silent wave of impending violence. Kale's forearms twitched. They're not here to negotiate. Whatever they are, they mean to take the Cathara or destroy it. Adnan's jaw tightened. Then they'll have to go through me first. The first strike. The fleet erupted without warning. Energy beams lanced across space, striking debris fields and sending sparks flying. The observation deck trembled and alarms blared. Adnan's heart hammered, but his mind was clear. He had faced predators, primordials, and trials of mind and spirit. This was no different, just another challenge demanding ingenuity and trust. The Cathara leapt, its massive form filling the deck as it soared upward, claws gripping reinforced steel. Its roar, amplified by its energy resonance, sent shivers through the approaching ship's sensors. Adnan climbed onto its back, strapping himself securely. Together, human and predator became a single unit, a fusion of instinct and intelligence. Kale followed in a smaller interceptor craft, weapons armed but tentative. Adnan, these ships, if they get through, the entire sector is at risk. I know, Adnan replied, but we'll make sure they don't get through. The dance of fire. The Cathara surged into space, its wings slicing through vacuum and energy barriers alike. Adnan directed it with precise movements, instincts honed through years of working alongside dangerous creatures. They dodged energy blasts, countered missile volleys, and closed the distance to the enemy fleet. Adnan spotted the lead ship, a massive command vessel radiating authority and menace. Its weapons locked onto them, but he held steady. Big guy, remember the trials? Patience, timing, trust. Let's show them what that means. With a sudden burst, the Cathara lunged, weaving through the enemy formation. Its claws tore through hulls, but carefully, avoiding unnecessary destruction. Adnan had learned that force alone was not victory. Strategy, timing, and understanding mattered. Each strike disrupted the enemy's formation, but more were coming, reinforcements pouring through the rift. Adnan realized this was no random attack. It was calculated, designed to test them just as the belt had. A shocking truth. As they approached the command vessel, a projection flickered in the void. A face appeared, alien yet disturbingly familiar. Red eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. So the human and the Cathara survive where others failed. Remarkable but irrelevant. Step aside or the galaxy will burn. Adnan's chest tightened. Recognition struck him like a blow. The figure was a former council enforcer, a being who had opposed him during the early days of the belt, driven by fear and hatred of human ingenuity. All the lies, propaganda, and attempts to suppress what humans could achieve, it had led to this. The Cathara growled, its body bristling with energy. Adnan whispered, "We finish this together, not with hate, with understanding." Unity against fear. Adnan leapt from the Cathara, landing on the command vessel's hull, his presence bold, fearless. The Enforcer activated a containment field, but Adnan's knowledge of alien engineering let him bypass it. He moved with purpose, communicating to the Cathara in subtle gestures, honed from years of partnership. The Cathara responded instantly, amplifying their connection, sending waves of energy that disrupted the ship's systems. Crew members panicked, shields faltering. Adnan pressed forward, speaking over comms. "You've been fighting fear for too long. You don't need to control us. You don't need to destroy. There's another way, see it and choose it." For a moment, silence. Then the command vessel shuddered, systems flickering. The Enforcer's red eyes widened in disbelief. No human had ever spoken this way, calm, direct, unshakable. The Cathara, embodying trust and courage, became more than a weapon. It became a bridge, a living testament to what humans could accomplish. Victory and revelation. With coordinated strikes and strategic maneuvers, Adnan and the Cathara disabled the command vessel without killing the crew. The remaining fleet retreated, confused and hesitant, unwilling to confront a bond they could not comprehend. The rift stabilized, energy calming as if acknowledging the new balance. Kale landed beside them, voice trembling. I've never seen anything like it. You changed the outcome without a single life lost." Adnan patted the Cathara's head. "Sometimes the hardest fights aren't against enemies, they're against fear and misunderstanding. We just showed them another way." The galaxy had witnessed something unprecedented. A human and an apex predator, united by trust and empathy, altering the course of events that had seemed inevitable. Word would spread across systems, myths born from reality, challenging centuries of prejudice and fear. Epilogue: Seeds of a New Era. Back on the belt, the Cathara settled in the training grounds, muscles relaxing, tail flicking with contentment. Adnan stood beside it, surveying the horizon. Kale joined him, and together they watched the first new fleet of humans and allies arrive, not to conquer but to learn, to cooperate, to explore. The trials, the battles, the heart-stopping moments, they had all led here. A single act of understanding had rippled outward, shaking old structures and planting seeds of trust. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. Adnan knelt beside the Cathara, scratching behind its massive ear. "We did it, big guy. They'll remember this, and maybe, just maybe, they'll start believing in something better." The Cathara purred, a vibration resonating through stone and metal, echoing across the belt. For the first time in centuries, peace did not feel fragile. It felt possible. And somewhere beyond the stars, the primordial watched, wings folded, approving, as a new chapter in galactic history quietly began. One written by a human who dared to calm the beast, and in doing so, changed the hearts of the galaxy.